When talking about single game performances, Wayne Gretzky's name often stands at the top of almost everyone's lists, as he would have numerous games where he would consistently drop 7 to 8 points, almost like it was nothing. But one of those 8-point nights lives in infamy, mainly for New Jersey Devils fans, and to explain what I mean, we need to go back. The year was 1983, and this was during a period of time in which the Devils seemed to be completely forgotten about, as they had very few big moments. Just a year prior, the team relocated from Colorado to become the Devils, so this was when the team was just getting used to their new home. But it was also the time where the Edmonton Oilers began to showcase their dominance. The team was highlighted by Messier, Lowe, and of course Wayne Gretzky. That's just to name a few. But Gretzky was on an absolute tear that season, and on November 19th of the 83-84 season, Gretzky's next stop was against the Devils. The Devils were god-awful that season and were in a race against Pittsburgh for dead last, so this was expected to be a cakewalk, and that it was. Just watch how easily Gretzky's able to light the lamp. Pure domination.
Just drops to Curry, then to Gretzky, back for Curry, score! Anderson free to Gretzky in front, score! Gretzky to Playfair, this time drive, save right, rebound, score by Curry! And Yari Curry has a Texas hat trick to 4 goals.
The Oilers would win the game 13-4, and Gretzky would famously state to the media after the game, quote, "Well, it's time they got their act together. They're ruining the whole league. They had better stop running a Mickey Mouse organization and put somebody on the ice." The Devils would continue to struggle and would only record 17 wins once the season came to an end. Some accused both New Jersey and Pittsburgh for tanking for a special someone. That player they were tanking for was none other than Mario Lemieux, and he had a historic night of his own as well. When talking about Lemieux, there's many moments you can look back on, but we're going to be picking on the Devils once again, as the player they failed the tank for would absolutely embarrass them on New Year's Eve 1988, pulling off one of the most impressive accomplishments in NHL history. That night, Lemieux would start things off with an even strength goal, followed by a shorthanded and then a power play goal. That was all in just the first period, mind you. Midway throughout the second, Lemieux would score on the penalty shot, and all he needed was the empty net, and he did just that. This moment was jaw-dropping as Mario scored literally every possible goal anyone could score in one game, also adding 3 assists for an overall 8-point night. The moment was so captivating, it was voted the greatest in NHL history on NHL.com back in 2017. There's one more 8-point night that we need to discuss, and for that, let's see who Graviteh decided to highlight.
Sam Gagner's NHL story would truly begin in 2007 as he got drafted 6th overall by the Edmonton Oilers, and he was looked at as a key part of the Oilers' future. And then the next few years happened where the Oilers would continue to be bottom of the barrel, down in the dumps in the NHL, continuing to contend for 1st overall pick after 1st overall pick. And heading into the 2011-2012 season, Sam Gagner was good, looked at as a good part of the Oilers' core, but not the superstar the Oilers drafted him to be. Going into 2012 and 2011, he had 42 points in 68 games. Not bad whatsoever, but definitely not a player you'd ever expect to get 8 points a night. Then we fast forward to February 12th, 2012, where the Edmonton Oilers, who were way out of a playoff spot, faced the juggernaut Chicago Blackhawks, where they absolutely got off to an absolute classic, and this was the night that Sam Gagner became a legend. Now, this game wasn't looking like anything out of the ordinary. It was 3-3 heading into the 3rd period, but Sam Gagner was having himself quite a nice night. 3 points on 3 goals, and the Oilers were looking to get maybe a point, maybe make this game close throughout the rest of the game. And the 3rd period would come, and this is where the legend was officially born. It wasn't looking like anything crazy, but then the Oilers made it 4-3, and the rest would be history as Sam Gagner would continue to pound goal and point after point, and the Oilers would eventually win 8-4. And although that season was excruciating for them, they came into the game with a 19-26-5 record. They still had a lone bright spot and a fantastic night where Sam Gagner gave them some happiness and some actual optimism that the team desperately needed.
Thanks, Gravs. Now, this is important to mention, as although Gandhi tied the Great One's franchise record, he came just 2 points shy of breaking the NHL record for the most points scored in a single game, and that record belongs to Daryl Sittler. And to recapture the magic, let's go back to 1976. This was during a time where the Leafs could actually beat the Bruins, and they would absolutely manhandle them that night, thanks to an offensive outburst by Sittler. Right before the game, the Boston media took a jab at the Leafs, stating that they needed a strong center between Lanny McDonald and Earl Thompson. Obviously, that centerman was Sittler, but he took it with a grain of salt, and entered that night like it was, quote, just another game. Sittler would start the first with just 2 assists, but after notching a hat trick and 2 more assists in the second, he was just 1 point away from 8. When entering the locker room, Sittler recalled the statistician coming in, telling him he was only 1 point away from tying the Rocket Richard's 8-point record. And entering the third period, Sittler scored the double hat trick, capping off his crazy night with the record. Sittler's 10-point night was legendary, and is still yet to be touched to this day. He was always an electric player, but that night further proved how dominant he really was. Now, let's shift our attention to the goaltenders, as they too have had some monster single game performances that deserve recognition. First, let's once again stop back in Edmonton. Yeah, I know, it seems that despite the team's poor performance throughout the majority of the 2010s, they still managed to break franchise and NHL records. For this moment, however, we need to look back at one player, Ben Scrivens. At the time, the 27-year-old netminder was hoping to solve the team's dreadful goaltending situation after being acquired by the team via trade, and he already showed flashes of hope. But in a game versus the San Jose Sharks in 2014, it seemed as if Edmonton's goaltending problems may have passed, as Scrivens would set an NHL record, making it look easy in the process. He would stop 59 of 59 shots, shutting out the Sharks, breaking the previous record of 54 saves held by Mike Smith to take the title of the most saves in a regular season shutout. Fans and even his teammates were absolutely stunned, with teammate Taylor Hall stating, quote, "That's gotta be one of the best performances by a goalie I've ever seen." Scrivens didn't just break one record that night, he broke multiple. He would surpass Billy Ranford, breaking Edmonton's franchise record, and would surpass Dwayne Rollison's 58 save night that he had during the 09-10 season. Scrivens' 59 saves were the most a goaltender's ever had in the regular season since Ron Tugnut, who had his historic night take place in 1991. Tugnut's career as a whole is intriguing, as he wasn't a bad goaltender by any means, he was just mostly on bad teams, and the 1991 Quebec Nordiques were no exception. He was behind one of the worst defenses in the entire league, and the team was on track to win about 16 games. In total, the team would allow 354 goals, only trailing the Leafs 318, so it was a complete shock when Tugnut was able to stop 70 of 73 shots in a game against the Boston Bruins, behind one of the worst teams in the NHL. Unlike the Nordiques, the Bruins were on cruise control, coasting their way to a division title, so they were hammering shots after shots on Tugnut at ease. In fact, B's defenseman Ray Bourque would set an NHL record 19 shots on goal, all being stopped by Tugnut. Ron's 70-save performance only trails Sam Lepresti, who was able to stop 80 shots against, well, the Bruins in 1941. What's sad about this outstanding game was that despite playing his heart out, the Nordiques would finish the game tied, ending in typical 90s Nordiques fashion. The 1993-94 season is one of the most memorable seasons in NHL history, but especially for one player in particular. That season, Dominik Hasek was taking over the NHL. That season would also be his first as a starter, and he would have one of the most dominant seasons a goaltender's ever had. Leading the league in save percentage and goals against average, Hasek would win the first of his 6 Vezina trophies and would finish in second place in the Hart Trophy MVP voting, helping take the Buffalo Sabres to the postseason. Another goalie was also heating up at the time, and that was Martin Brodeur. Marty would take home the Calder Trophy that season and would help his team make the playoffs as well, and the two young goaltenders would square off in a must-watch first-round playoff series. After 4 games, it was deadlocked at 2 games apiece. That is, until New Jersey would win Game 5 at home, taking the series lead. Hasek knew in order to survive, he had to win Game 6. He knew the Devils were trying to end it, But what he didn't know was that Game 6 wouldn't end until 1:25 in the morning, as both he and Brodeur would face off in one of the best goaltending performances of all time. Game 6 would go to 4 overtimes before a winner was finally crowned, and both Hasek and Brodeur were both riding on shutouts. One of them was about to make history, and thanks to Dave Hannon, it would be Hasek who would come out victorious, tying the series with a record-setting 70-save shutout performance, ending one of the most legendary playoff games in NHL history. Unfortunately, Game 7 would arrive and the Devils would ultimately win the series, but Hasek's 70-save shutout night was definitely one to remember and would foreshadow what was to come for the young goaltender.
Inside the net to Fleury, got it in front, and Hasek makes the save on his stomach, and he kicked his leg forward and made the stop. Unbelievable.